The intrepid crew of the USS Enterprise are in the middle of their 5-year mission to explore strange new worlds, when another revenge-minded villain with a name beginning with the letter K threatens to make their lives miserable. Johnny Torch reviews Star Trek Beyond. J.J. Abrams departed the franchise for some other little-known sci-fi property, taking his abundance of lens flares with him. Enter Justin Lin, Fast and Furious director in the captain's chair for this film, commemorating the 50th anniversary of the Star Trek franchise. This new rebooted Star Trek series seems to have divided many fans down the middle. In fairness, I really like the cast and the 2 previous films well enough. But a lot of the changes to the characters have made them feel somewhat ungenuine to their original counterparts. My objections have always been these. First, the crew doesn't feel like a highly disciplined staff that they were always portrayed to be in the series. This crew doesn't think twice about interjecting their opinions to the captain or having a lover's quarrel during a mission. And it makes them feel junior varsity, and not the most efficient crew in the Federation. While it serves the secondary cast well, and is something I'm sure the original cast of the crew's secondary characters would have appreciated had they been given the opportunity, it just feels inauthentic. Other things disappoint me, like the Spock-Uhura romance, since they seem to be trying to make the usually stoic Vulcan much more emotional here. Having Scotty played for broad comedy, in the original series Jimmy Doohan was the occasional source of humor, but Simon Pegg has had more in common with Harpo Marx than the 3rd highest ranking officer of the Enterprise. And the cartoony womanizing of Kirk's that borders on flat-out parody. But I'm glad to say that, for the most part in this film, they've eliminated my objections. They really felt most like the original crew in this film, less bickering and out-of-character moments than the previous films. The film starts with Captain Kirk contemplating retirement, and I was a bit dubious about that. I mean, it tries to harken back to Wrath of Khan, but Kirk was 50 in that film, although he acted more like 70, but that's another story. In this film, he's what, 35 or so? But the main gist of it is he's tiring of the exploration gig and wants a more normal existence. In the meantime, in a nice tribute to the legendary Leonard Nimoy, Spock learns that Spock Prime has passed on, and considers taking his place on New Vulcan. This causes a rift between him and Uhura, which thankfully keeps them at arm's length for most of the movie. During their next mission, they're attacked by an armada of ships that attack like a swarm of bees. It's a pretty cool effect as they take apart the Enterprise like a mass of termites, causing its eventual crash landing. Unfortunately, the Enterprise has been attacked and destroyed so many times it doesn't really carry the same emotional weight as it did back in Search for Spock. I mean, we kinda know at this point they'll just get another ship, call it Enterprise, and be back in business by the end of the film. Which of course happens, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Enter Krull. He's a nasty-looking guy and one of Star Trek's more memorable villains, played by Idris Elba. Now, I complained that the trailers were very unexciting, but it was obviously to protect the film's twist. Although I admit I called the twist fairly early on, it was still very effective. Krull was once an early Starfleet captain that was marooned on the planet for centuries, became deformed, driven mad, and now seeks to avenge himself on the Federation by using a weapon hidden away on the Enterprise. As he uses his power to drain the life of his victims, his appearance becomes more humanoid. Eventually, the crew gets split up after abandoning ship. Bones and Spock are together, which is always a fun combination. They make the most of the time spent together, but I frankly was hoping for them to take part in something a little more imaginative. But their storyline is basically bonding while Bones treats a seriously injured Spock. Meanwhile, Scotty befriends Jayela, an alien babe that's also been marooned after her family was killed by Krull. She takes up residence in Krull's old ship, the USS Franklin. Jayela is played by Sofia Boutella, and is both cute and funny. As I said, Pegg has been the weakest link for character accuracy up to now, but he does a good job here, keeping the mugging and shrieking to the bare minimum. Eventually, the team reunites, leading to some heroics by Captain Kirk to save Jayela. The crew eventually defeats Krull's armada by blasting the Beastie Boys' Sabotage. Now, I have to admit, I found this hilarious. I only wish it wasn't in the trailers, I would have laughed all the harder. Humanity is saved, not by humpback whales this time, but by the Beastie Boys. Just let that sink in. In the end, Kirk and Krull duke it out for the final fate of the Yorktown starbase that Krull is trying to destroy. It's great to see Kirk finally get a good fist fight with the villain here. That was always a classic staple of the series. I really like the changes to the crew's uniforms. They look to be made of the same material as the original series, but I'm disappointed that it seems like most of the crew has on these generic gray suits instead of the iconic costumes for most of the movie. This would ultimately be Anton Yelchin's final voyage as Mr. Chekhov, with the actor's tragic passing. He gets a fair amount of screen time here, and his final full line of dialogue is actually a line taken from an episode of the original series, which is very fitting. As you might expect, Kirk decides to get back into the captain's chair, and a touching discovery among the late Spock Prime's effects causes Spock to reconsider his retirement as well. And so the Enterprise A is now ready to boldly go where no one has gone before. They have the crew each taking a line from the classic series opening at the end. Previously, that honor was only ever given to Kirk or Spock, but after several films in the series, it feels like a fresh choice here. The crew really feels comparable to the original cast in this one. If they continue on in this direction, as Star Trek IV is already greenlit, the franchise can only improve. Lots of old-school Star Trek action and fun, so if you're a fan of classic Trek, I think you'll love this one as much as I did. I'm giving Star Trek Beyond 4.5 stars out of 5. This is Johnny Torch reminding you, keep the flame burning brightly, and live long and prosper.